Thank you very much for being on the programme. Nice to have you here, no longer as a panellist, but as a political
in the hot seat, Sophie.
In the hot seat, yeah, exactly. And you're here to talk about Skills England. What's the idea?
Well, obviously, a very important theme of the election campaign was how we can grow the economy. That's a central mission of the government, as is, of course, how we can ensure that people are overcoming barriers to opportunity. They're getting the opportunities, particularly from my perspective, to learn, to gain new skills throughout their lives. In order to be able to do that, we've got to do better on skills than we've done up until this point. We've got about a third of vacancies now where employers can't get people to work because they just haven't got the skills necessary in order to fill those vacancies. So unless we can bring together that skills infrastructure better than has been the case previously, we'll carry on having those gaps. And that's the task that we're setting for Skills England.
It's also been seen as part of a strategy to, I guess, kind of improve the skills of British workers so that firms don't need to rely on migration. Is that fair?
No, that is fair. And one of the key partners for Skills England will be the Migration Advisory Council, along with employers, along with thinking about the industrial strategy. Because if we're going to build more houses, if we're going to tackle climate change through new industries around new forms of energy, for example, if you haven't got the skilled workers to do that, then previously employers' only choice was to look overseas, which of course added to migration. But actually we want those opportunities to be available for people in the UK, young people and older people, because that's good for them, but it's also good for growing the economy as well.
I guess I'm kind of trying to unpick this framing slightly, because it seems to me that there isn't, much evidence to suggest that actually there is a real link between the skills of the British workforce and higher immigration. We haven't got evidence to show a similar rise in unemployment, for example, for British workers when we did see higher levels of migration, because, we have a flexible economy, so it's not like, we've got a fixed number of jobs in the labour market.
No, but we do have evidence that we're not growing quickly enough because we're not able to find the skills to fill those jobs. As I said earlier, a third of vacancies.
But you wouldn't see this as necessarily something that's going to bring down levels of immigration?
Well, I think what's important about migration has played a really important role in this country, culturally and socially, also economically. But nevertheless, we have not got enough skills within the country to get the sort of growth that we've set as a government as a central mission. And also, we've got people who want to fill those roles and yet haven't been able to access the sort of skills training. Employers haven't been able to find the courses that would enable them to do that. So, of course, this is about making sure there's coordination across the system, but it's largely about how you grow the economy and how you provide opportunities for individuals as well.
Now, your ministerial role is looking at further and higher education as well. Today, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, said that universities need to manage their own budgets rather than looking to the taxpayer. What do you think she meant by that?
Well, what she meant was what she said, which is, of course, it's no surprise that one of the first things that I learned when I came into the department is that universities are under quite significant financial pressure. The last government knew about that. They just chose not to take action. So But of course, they are also independent, autonomous organisations. So we are seeing universities beginning to make changes to become efficient, as they should do.
What kind of changes should they be making?
Well, that's one of the things that I'm really keen, and I was talking to some Vice-Chancellors just this morning, that's one of the things I'm really keen to work with universities to understand so that we can support the efficiency that universities need to show whilst also protecting the students' interests within that.
So basically, rather than looking for a bailout, they should first be looking at, job cuts or cutting back on certain courses, for example.
They should certainly be looking at how they can run as efficiently as possible. And later on this week, we're also going to be saying more about the regulatory system for universities through the Office for Students, who have already identified this financial challenge. But I think we can do more to set the direction through regulation of what we expect universities to be doing, because they need to do that also whilst they maintain access for people to university. Because just as people get opportunities through skills training, so they get opportunities from going to university, both of those things grow our economy, which is absolutely fundamental to what we're trying to do as a government.
Are you realistic to the threat that some universities might have to shut?
Well, I don't want that to happen, and I'm concerned that students are still able to get those opportunities, and we will work with the universities in order to give them the sort of long-term future
But
that I'm afraid
it might happen,
that I'm
you think?
afraid the last government didn't put into operation. This is another of the things that we are finding that we've been left with as the government ran away to an early election.
But you acknowledge it might happen, right?
I hope it doesn't happen, and that's what we need to work to try to avoid. It's first of all in the hands of universities to take the action necessary in order to be as efficient as possible. But I want to work alongside them in order to make sure that our higher education sector, which is internationally recognised, it's one of the key enablers in this country for individuals and for the economy. I want that to work successfully, and I'm willing to work in partnership to ensure that that happens.
Just want to talk about a couple of things just off your brief, if you may. This is what it's like now on the chair. The green agenda, because it does feel like this is a government that wants to, build, even if that means reviewing the green belt, even if that means, for example, changing environmental protections around kind of nutrients, for example. There's also speculation about the runway at Heathrow. Right now, is growth trumping green?
Well, growth is one of the ways, of course, that you achieve green, actually. So, as I was saying earlier on, one of the big growth areas that we're going to have in the industrial strategy is more renewable energy, using technology to help to solve some of those climate problems. So it's not, I don't think it's a lose-lose. I think there's a win-win here. But we do need to grow. We need to find houses for people. We need the infrastructure to support our growth. And as a government, we've said, and we've already taken action on planning changes, for example, we do need to ensure that that happens. And we will be very willing to engage with how that happens, but there cannot be an if, because the country and our future prosperity depends on us being able to grow.
So growth first, everything else, you might have to wait a bit longer for.
Well,
not everything.
No. What I said, Sophie, was it wasn't a one or the other. I said there's a lot of synergies between them.
One thing that we might have to wait for, though, is the removal of that benefit cap, the two-child benefit cap. Lots of debate around that, lots of people unhappy about it. What's your own view on it?
Well, what you won't have to wait for is action that this government is taking on child poverty. Bridget Phillipson, my boss, and Liz Kendall at the Department of Work and Pensions already getting together to work on that much more wide-ranging strategy to get children out of poverty.
I'm asking specifically about that cap.
Yeah, which I think the Chancellor was very clear about yesterday, will cost £3 billion. We have very clearly said that we're not going to make promises or do things that are going to plunge the economy back into the sort of mess that we've inherited, that we're now having to clear up. But child poverty is at the heart of a Labour government, and that's why, in a whole range of ways, reforming housing, bringing in breakfast clubs.
Look, I know, I get it. I know,
so we are
those are lines that we're getting, from the government. We get it.
Sorry, Sophie, they're not lines. They are things that we are already doing as a government.
But I'm specifically asking about the two-child cap. Yeah. Rosie Duffield, fellow Labour MP, says it's like something out The Handmaid's Tale. What's your own view on it?
Well, look, I think if it's going to cost us £3 billion and we don't know where the money's coming from, we're not going to be making promises that we can't deliver. We know what happened under the last government when people did that, and it was the families that most couldn't afford it who suffered from that chaos. So we will undoubtedly make progress on child poverty, but we'll do it in a way that doesn't trash the economy and recognises the whole range of different ways that we need to support families.
Now, the last time you were on this programme, you were in the panel chair, as we said at the beginning of the interview. You've now been appointed as a minister, I think, 25 years after your first job, also in the Department for Education. How's it feel being back?
Oh, it's brilliant to be back there. I mean, I am so... I talk a lot about lifelong learning in this job, and now I've got a sort of opportunity for a bit of lifelong learning and a new chance to be part of government. It's a massive honour. And, I know it means that I'm going from commentator to being on the pitch, facing tackles from people like you, Sophie. But I am massively proud to be doing it.
I always think with these things as well, if you're a member of the Shadow Cabinet, you kind of know the call's going to come, you're kind of primed, you're waiting in Westminster. Did it catch you by unaware?
Well, it did a bit. Even though I'd sort of had a tip-off a bit in advance that it might be coming, I was at my caravan in Wales and managed to miss the first two calls. So I've got to get back in the habit of being sort of on the ball when it comes to reshuffles. But luckily, they didn't scrub me off the list, which was my slight worry, and the Prime Minister did call, and I was enormously honoured to say yes.
I love it. Once you picked up the phone to him.
Once I got off the beach in Wales, in fact, I took the call on the beach in Wales.
I love it. That's great. A lovely bit of detail. Thank you very much. It's great to have you on the programme. Thank you.